I have
Wh-
mixed feelings.
which was the reason we assume he lives, by the way.
Correct.
Frankly, Adolin should be dead. If anyone in this book who lived should be dead, I think it's probably Adolin.
Yeah.
Like, full stop. But anyways. Or maybe Zeth, but...
Welcome back to Following Noah on the Stormlight Podcast. This week is episode 271, and we're finishing Wind and Truth again. Paul, how are you?
Swell, Trevor. I'm doing quite swell. Once again, I feel like I could come into this episode kicking and screaming out loud. I think people who are listening would probably prefer me not to do so, so I'm going to contain my emotions and excitement. A lot to talk about this. Today we're talking about, yesterday, last week, or whatever this is, we talked about Kaladin, Zeth, Dalinar, Teravangian. Today we're talking about everything else, and there's a lot of buckets here to look at. So I'm excited. I feel like we're going to have a lot of really... I don't know what to expect for us all to talk about. There's a lot of things. So
I have no idea how long this episode will be. Absolutely no clue. It could be 50 minutes. It could be an hour and a half.
Yeah. Your guess is as good as mine. Funny enough, we'll get to how Eliot's doing, but funny enough for those listening, I think every time we've ever tried to say the rough, this is going to be a long episode or this is going to be a short episode, it's always the opposite. I feel like I remember back in Oathbringer us being like, this is going to be a long episode. So many big things happen, and it's like low-key one of our shortest.
The end of Oathbringer? Is that what you just said?
Not the end of Oathbringer, in Oathbringer.
Oh.
In that time, yeah.
I was going to say, the end of Oathbringer, we consistently did 2-hour episodes like every week for like 5 weeks straight.
I understand. And then on the flip side, we'll be like, nothing super crazy happens this episode, and then we will talk for an hour and a half. So anyways, without further ado, Eliot, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I have all the emotions that come with wrapping up an epic Brandon Sanderson book that we have read now for, I think we've said this a bunch in our last month worth of episodes of just how long we've been in this book, which has been crazy. And here we are. We have finished it. The brick is done. And in what I think is now classic Brandon fashion, we hit the breakneck pace of the Sanderlange. And then the book kind of just ends. Like it builds up this momentum. We hit top speed, and then it just kind of launches us off a cliff. And that's where the book ends. We don't get a lot of lengthy wrap up or processing or the characters. I think we've talked about this at the end of Stormlight book before. Of I kind of crave the characters all sit down in a grassy field and decompress or process what all happened.
They get that. We just don't get to see it.
They do. You're right. They're getting that. I am not. It is Odium and Teravangian take on the Shard of Honor. Dalinar pulls off this masterstroke, and
so would you say a man stands on a cliffside and watches the end of all things?
Yeah.
Is that how you would describe this?
Exactly that.
All right. Eliot, you gave us a summary last week. Can you give us all the holes that you didn't fill in?
Yes.
Yesterday? I'm going to keep saying last week in reference to 270, by the way. Just get over it.
Let me go and fill in all the holes. I tried last week to just give you the summary of chapters 143 through the end of the book of just Dalinar, Kaladin, Zeth, and Teravangian, kind of those plot lines. This day, we are going through all the rest of the character lines. So I'm going to try and hit a quick summary of those. Again, going to try not to get too bogged down in the details because we're going to dissect those in a few seconds. But first, chapter 143, we start with Shallan, Relaine, and Renarin have popped out of the spiritual realm. They escaped, but they pop into Shadesmar, not the physical realm. Renarin and Merlane run over to, I think they're at Urithiru. They're like right outside Urithiru, or right there. Renarin and Merlane, they run over to the Oath Gate and they say, quick, let us all through. Pop, Merlane and Renarin go through. Shallan does not. Shallan gets stuck in Shadesmar. Chapter 144 is all Kaladin and Dalinar, so nothing to add there. Chapter 145, at this point after that, chapter 144 is where all the retribution stuff happens. So in chapter 145, Navani and the sibling realize what has happened. They realize that Dalinar is dead. They realize that retribution has formed and is going to come destroy everything. So they form a protection bubble over Urithiru. And both of them seemingly kind of have to go into a coma state to do this. And so they are...
Doesn't Zelda do this in one of the Legend of Zelda
Oh,
games?
yes.
Like exactly this?
Twilight Princess?
Skyward Sword?
Maybe. Both, maybe.
Yeah, both.
Anyway. See, you're distracting me again. It's all your fault.
Yeah. No, I'll take credit for that one.
I
just couldn't get that image out of my head.
Yeah, I also blame Trevor for what it's worth. Continue.
Protection bubble over Urithiru, but Navani and the sibling are out of it. Shallan is still stuck in Shadesmar. She just kind of in 145 is realizing that she's stuck in Shadesmar, whereas before we just kind of dropped her there. Chapter 146, we get a little bit of Sigzil. So Sigzil is trying to get some help from Lirin, but he doesn't have any physical ailments. He just has mental ailments. And so Lirin's like, I can't really help you. And Wit bursts in the door, hands him his Dawn Shard super fast, kicks him into Shadesmar. Retribution shows up. Terrabution shows up, vaporizes Wit. He dead. Renarin then finds Navani frozen in a crystal and talks with all the rest of the people. And they decide that they're going to carry on kind of Dalinar's legacy. Renarin and Jasnah are both there. They refuse to take on a kingship. Renarin's not going to be king. And they talk about standing up a republic. Very American feeling, actually, in that chapter where they're like, we need a democratic republic. Freedom. And then they kind of have that discussion and set up that plan. And then Jasnah finds a letter from Wit. Very sad. She feels very crushed. We leave Jasnah on a low point at this book. She is crushed and gets her breakup response letter from Wit. Reads through that. We jump over super fast to Venli and the listeners, who are setting up their own nation over on the Shattered Plains, basically. Retribution comes to them and kind of strikes a deal. Retribution is going to supply them with Stormlight not Stormlight. His own light power.
Warlight, presumably.
Yeah, assuming Warlight. And that's going to allow them to grow crops and do all the things, but they're kind of going to enter into some kind of contract. I don't know if it's contract, deal, treaty, something like that. Chapter 147, the last chapter. Wit, Hoyd, is not dead. He's alive on Scadrial. We'll talk about it. But he processes through kind of what has gone down. He realizes that the plan that Dalinar has enacted, he has a lot of complicated thoughts about it, but ultimately settles on, all right, Dalinar, you're a genius, and I need to get back to Roshar to help. Oh, wait. There's a time bubble. Roshar is in a slow bubble. And time is going to pass differently in different places. And I have a lot of questions. But we're still wrapping things up with the summary. So Adolin is gathering up his folks. He's in Azir. He's got his unoathed crew. They're kind of lamenting the death of Dalinar. They think Dalinar has failed. And the Everstorm is now going everywhere, covering up every land with the dark storm. It's just persistent everywhere. It's not going away. Later on, I don't really have this in my notes, but I think they get to the point where the Everstorm actually only persists over Odium, Retribution's lands, and the free lands don't have the Everstorm.
Correct.
I don't know. It's weird.
It makes a break in the sky over Azir and presumably the Shattered Plains. No, not the Shattered Plains.
Right.
Anyway.
Yes, the shit. Anyway, we'll talk about it. Sigzil joins up with an Iriali caravan. they're in Shadesmar, just trying to survive, and he meets up with Auxiliary. I mean, 12124, and has a good little chat. That Trevor's rolling his eyes for good reason over there.
Mm-hmm.
And then Shallan chats up Thydakar, our good old friend, the Lord of Scars, and makes a deal with that dude. And that gets us to the epilogue, which is more Hoyd. Hoyd interviewing and getting a job to be the House Ladrian coachman, which brings that plot line to a satisfying connection point to another plot line that we've been a part of in the past, which was neat. And then the postlude, which we've kind of already talked about last episode quite a bit. Our heralds, including Kaladin, are all on Alaswa and singing Kumbaya and processing all their PTSD. The end.
Well done, Eliot. Good job. Paul, do you have 2 words? I forgot to ask you last week or yesterday.
Oh, that's really funny because yesterday I had 2 words for the episode.
Just
This
use those.
episode,
It's the same chapters.
oh wow, okay, but they're for different characters.
Oh.
Oh, no, sorry. Hold the phone. I did write down 2 words. I went looking for the old 2 words, but I found the current ones. Okay, my 2 words for these characters and these chapters, wrapping up the book, are transfers and time bubbles. That's 2 words. So we'll talk about time bubbles here in a bit. It's at least 2 things. And transfers because 12124, aka Auxiliary, has transferred to Sigzil, which is aside from we knew this could happen, this is a big deal. Like, I feel like this is a really, really big deal. We were wondering about this in the past, of could you transfer a Spren to another Radiant? It wasn't a direct transfer, but it was a leave and a rejoin. It's close enough. Transfers and time bubbles. So there you go.
When would you like your written apology? Signed in triplicate.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll just have it on my office by the end of the day. So
The end of the day. Your time or my time?
On my office, on my desk by the end of the day.
Eliot, do 2 words.
My 2 words. Yeah, we're just throwing all your rules on this podcast out the window. I feel like we're in full mutiny mode.
I feel like Sanderson did the same thing too. He's just like, we're just gonna write.
Forget it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So my 2 words, maybe they're 2, maybe they're not, are simply, what a journey. That is my feeling reading these last few chapters, is just the emotions, I don't know if exhaustion is quite the right word. Like, that kind of puts a negative tone onto it that I actually don't really mean. It's like that, the satisfaction part of exhaustion of when you finish a race and it's been a marathon and you have gone a long way and you are proud of yourself for doing it. You are satisfied with the accomplishment you've made. You've learned so much. What a journey. That's the state we're in right now.
Says the guy who ran sprints and never has run a marathon.
Yeah, okay, that's true. I don't do more than 1 lap. 1 lap only, 400.
Okay. Paul, to you. Where would you like to start? We could go with whatever.
Ooh.
We've got like a tic-tac-toe board and we can just shoot wherever.
We've got, yeah, we could literally throw a dart at the dartboard and see.
Oh, I've got one.
Lands to start.
Hold on.
Eliot.
I'm going to hijack
Eliot's
you.
going to steal your dart.
I am. Dart.
Okay.
I snatched it out of the air.
Throw away.
Yep.
You got it.
I'm going to hand it back to you, actually, because I'm not going to go to a certain character.
A roller coaster.
I know, right? Real quick before I hand the dart back to you. Quick announcement. I teased this 3 or 4 episodes ago because I realized that at Dragonsteel, where we got our physical copies of the book, I went around and got a variety of signatures from a bunch of the artists that contributed to the book. I got quite a few. I think I got 7 all told. I didn't get them all. They weren't all there. I realized about 3 or 4 episodes ago, about 20 chapters ago, that I still had not found one. A lot of these artists, I handed them my book and they're like, oh yeah, my art's in there, but it's spoilers, so look away. So I would literally turn around while they flipped to a random part in my book and signed it. Well, one of those people was Haley Lazo, I think is how she says her name. And we're getting to the end here, and we are like tens of pages away from the end, and I'm like, I still have not found her signature. Where in the world did she sign? I found it. It is on the chapter header of the epilogue. She signed right there.
Nice.
Little signature next to the epilogue. And I think what she was getting at here is I think she was a major contributor to the chapter arches. The arches that slowly decayed over the days, day 1 through 9. Each time you flip to a new day, the chapter arches are slightly more crumbled. When we hit day 10, it changed again. Every single chapter was more decayed. And so there you go. There's the epilogue where the entire thing is just rubble. There's not a single stone on top of another. It is just a pile of dust and rocks, which apparently is the fault of Haley Lasso. So thank you, Haley, for signing my book.
Wow. That was neat. And I'm
Cool.
glad you found all of your signatures now. That's exciting.
It was a fun little scavenger hunt, actually.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, then, if I have the dart back and I'm throwing at the dartboard, I would say we go ahead and start with Shallan and Adolin. I would consider them
All right.
probably our foremost characters here. Shallan and Adolin are day one characters for us, essentially. So let's start there. Shallan is Pregnant, by the way. So Trevor, you predicted that a long time ago, didn't you?
Yeah.
Or at least prediction, or at least like you expected to see it or wanted to see it, something along those lines, right?
Yeah. Okay. So but before the book even came out, before we did our bingo cards, we'll get to the bingo cards in a couple weeks. I assumed that Shallan would get pregnant and that Adolin would die once we found out that Shallan would be pregnant. That almost happened. We were quite close to that coming true. Something equally tragic, I believe, has happened at the end of this book here. That Shallan, months after day 10, we're still in quote day 10 of the book, but it's supposed to be several months after these events here. Shallan, which I completely missed on my first listen, is pregnant and trying to return to the physical realm. She's been stranded in Shadesmar. She is with Pattern and Testament. She makes her way to the Horneater Peaks. Cultivation's perpendicularity is indeed gone. There's no way back until she can find out where Odium's perpendicularity is, which in theory, I think we actually do know the answer to that. Like the reader does, but she doesn't. But yeah, all that to say, Shallan is pregnant. I did predict this. It is on my board, I think. And she is separated from the father-to-be.
And just to be clear, this was kind of sneaky, Brandon. The book does not say, and Shallan was pregnant. The word pregnant is not in the text. I read it 3 times. It's not there. It's hinted at. It's hinted at. And I missed it on my first read too. I did not pick up it at all. And then we were chatting with some folks in the Discord processing, and everyone was jumping in. Oh, and did you know Shallan was pregnant? And what? And then you go back and read it, and you're like, yeah, that does seem pretty clear. But it is only hinted at.
Apparently, there's a hint that I joked at the beginning of the book that I was like, hey, this checks off my board, my bingo board. And apparently it's actually a thing. So Jean Anat, at the beginning of the book, says, hey, I'm just trying to protect Roshar for my children, and you should try to protect Roshar for yours. And I was like, oh, it's confirmed Shallan's pregnant. Yeah, apparently that's true. Jean Anat is straight up telling Shallan, yo, you're pregnant, and you should be thinking about future Roshar for your kids. Plural, by the way. Plural.
Okay, maybe twins, triplets,
maybe twins
on the way, something like that. For the record,
personas.
I did. Yeah, there we go. Okay, for the record, I did catch this on my first read through. They hint at it, I think, like two times pretty directly of like clutching her stomach and something else. I don't remember what the other mention is, but it is. They are hints. They don't say, "Oh, I'm pregnant," but they are hints. But they are exceptionally direct hints, where there's no, misinterpreting it. It is the confirmation. I would say that she is pregnant.
We're definitely going to give Trevor credit for his bingo slot. I think it's pretty clear.
Oh, absolutely. Congrats, Trevor.
Thank you.
But yeah, so she's stuck in Shadesmar. Thoughts? What other thoughts do you have? I personally, I wanted. I mentioned this a little bit last episode, but for Shallan being such a primary character throughout our story, I wanted more conclusion for her. I know that there's other things. There's more things to talk about with her. I know I'm jumping ahead, but I wanted her to get spent back out into the physical realm and to unite with Adolin and talk again. We didn't get a Adolin Dalinar conversation. Not really.
Don't get me started, man. Oh my goodness.
So I thought we should get an Adolin Shallan conversation, and once again, we're ending this book as book 5 of 10, not book 5 of 5, where Lot is inconclusive. So she's at the end of this book, she's left wandering, she's stranded. She does get a Sion, which is pretty neat. We'll talk about that. Do y'all have thoughts before moving on to that? I know I kind of dropping some hot opinions there, but
so the Shallan Adolin closure, I feel very differently than the Adolin Dalinar closure. We can talk about Adolin here in a second, but Shallan Adolin is coming. They will reunite at some point. Whether the baby's popped out after or before is the question. That I'm not concerned about that. We will get Shallan Adolin closure at some point down the line in 12 years. I'll save my Adolin Dalinar thoughts, but as far as the Shallan specific thoughts on her getting stranded in Shadesmar, is she gonna have Pattern help deliver some babies, or like what's gonna go on here?
I will go on record saying her being stuck in Shadesmar, I really hope that's not a major long thing.
Okay.
I feel like in every previous book that we've been in Shadesmar, I know that there are tangible, trackable ways that they are getting in and out of Shadesmar that make sense. But I feel like it feels to me, in retrospect, every time they're basically spat out right at the time that the story needs them to be spat out of Shadesmar.
Yeah. And
I'm kind of sad that didn't just happen here. She gets shoved out of the spiritual realm. There we are, back on Roshar. If it's like, if we go this whole book 6 and she goes to term and delivers a child in Shadesmar before reuniting with Adolin, I don't know. There's nothing wrong with that, but I don't like it. I feel like that's too filler story. I don't know, like the dilemma of getting through Shadesmar. If that's a major thing that takes a long time for her to get out, I'm ready to move to the next part. That feels like filler to me. So I'm ready for her to get. I've said the word spat way more than I ever have in my life. I'm ready for her to get spat out of Shadesmar. So, yeah.
But neither one knows the other's alive at this point. When there is finally the reunion, right? Yeah. That she gets spat out, as you're saying, back into Adolin's arms with 8 months pregnant, then that scene would be quite emotional, would it not?
Trevor, you are right. I want to push, and that I in no way want to be mean to the book. Okay, wow. I know I want to be mean to the book, but I want to ask point blank, why didn't we have that emotional moment you're talking about in this book? I think that would have been so fulfilling to Shallan's character and to us as the readers.
But they
And
haven't been apart
there's
for 10 years. They need to be
why do
apart
they
for 10 years.
why do they need to be apart for 10 years?
No, for us, not
Oh,
for the
no,
reader, not
but
for the
yeah,
characters.
but no, like respectfully, no, that we do think we have to be apart for 10 years. We do not need to wait for book 6 to probably be halfway or all the way through to have that reuniting moment. If that is like a pivotal moment, like we have these big moments at the end of each book, right? I will honestly be a bit upset if it's like book 6 is like big moment, which is not going to be. I don't think that will happen. But if it was like the big moment is that reuniting, I don't know. Like, I don't think that's something that needs to be dragged out. I really don't. I think Eliot even made a comment a little bit last week of what if some things got cut from the end of the book because it's just too long. Like, if anything needs to be in this book, I would probably stake my flag in the ground that's the Adolin Dalinar. We can talk about that. But this is like one or two of I would stake my flag in the ground that we need to have Shallan closure back with Adolin. They've been such a good, they're like the couple I look at in this story. And so having them end worlds apart and that she's pregnant, I don't know. It didn't feel like a good conclusion. I need to get off of my soapbox here. I'll let it rest, but
let me tell you how I kind of interpreted or took this end bit with Shallan, and maybe it'll change how you think about this, or probably won't. But to add to the discussion a little bit, I read into these final scenes where Shallan contacts Thydakar, Mr. Lord of Scars himself, chats with him, makes a deal, makes a pretty big deal, all just to get a Sion. And then what I kind of read in between the lines was all just so that she could give Adolin a phone call and say, "Hey, we're pregnant." Like, that was a aw moment for me, where she makes a deal with the devil just so she can make one phone call to say, "Hey, honey, I'm fine. And by the way, we're having a kid or kids." Like that. I had to like tack a little bit onto where the text ended. But for me, I kind of invented my own little bit of closure there.
Yeah. To add one more spat count to the spat counter, it does logically make sense to me that if she was spat out on a Roshar, she might just die. So, like, depending on what time that happens, and all the events going on with the contest, live at around this time. So, who knows? Maybe that was for safekeeping. And you are right, Eliot. That's kind of the silver lining here. Is this Sion could be the phone call to,
because that's exactly where we leave it. She gets the Sion, and the very last bit we get from Shallan is her giving instructions to the Sion to go talk to the one and only other Sion they have and get it to drop whatever it's doing and go to Adolin. Like, that's the curtains on Shallan.
Yeah.
Now, this might bridge us into other things. Maybe we should or should not. I'm a little terrified that we now have Shallan pregnant, apart from Adolin, and we've got some weird time bubbles happening. Now, I think as we've left it, pregnant Shallan and Adolin are in the same level of time dilation.
I think so too, yes.
But are they going to stay there?
I hope so.
When they rejoin, meet up,
reunite.
Thank you. When they why that is a simple word.
When they unite them,
when she's spat out,
when the spatting happens, when
Shallan or the
something, yeah.
Oh damn, I'm gonna lose it here in a second. Okay, when they reunite and 10 years has gone, will it have been exactly 10 years for both of them? That is now my question.
They need to give each other those little time clock fabrials and then compare times when they come back, like Interstellar.
Because here's what I'm
Mm.
thinking: if Shallan leaves, which I feel like is very possible at this point, if she can't get back to the physical realm, is she gonna leave Roshar, go to Scadrial or something crazy like that to go get involved with the Ghost Bloods, have her children, and they grow up, and the next time Adolin meets them, the first time he meets his child is an adult.
I was gonna tack onto that, Eliot. I think that I'm just throwing it out there. Trevor can talk for himself, but I think that's something that Trevor would not appreciate. He didn't seem to be very on board with the Gavinor time jump.
Yes, I
And
would like to talk at
so
some point. Yeah,
I think
I need to talk
yeah.
about the time
Nope.
dilation stuff.
I'm taking it over for you, Trevor. I'm giving so for the record, these are Trevor's thoughts and feelings that I'm sharing, not my
I'll just
own.
sign at the bottom on my apology letter as well.
Yeah, absolutely. No, but yeah, I have other thoughts about speed bubbles. That's one of my words, but I would I would be really surprised if that's the case. But I mean, it is possible. I mean, who knows? But yeah, Trevor, you can chime in here. But
Okay.
I'm assuming that you're not a fan of the time bubble.
Time
conundrum.
dilation rant. Here we go. As soon as I hear time manipulation in my ear, I immediately shut off. Like, I am not a fan instantly. I don't care where the intentions are. It doesn't work for me on principle. However, I will say Brandon has done it correctly every time I've seen it, and he's had to prove that to me each time, which he's done successfully. Mistborn Era 2, I listened to Alloy Law for the first time, and I'm like, what on earth is going on? And by the time I actually get to understand Wayne and everything that's going on Scadrial and all of the time bubble stuff, it's fun. And I enjoy it. And like, time bubbles are super fun on Scadrial. Great. I will get to the greater Roshar thing in a second, which we can go ahead and talk about that after this. But if there is some sort of time dilation thing between Shallan and Adolin, I am going to be on page 1 of absolutely not. You're going to need to prove this to me, and I don't want it proven to me. Please don't. So if there is the Gavinor thing, he just barely got away with for me. Like, I have issues with it, but I gave it a pass because of what Eliot said in the episode. It needed to be a genuine contest. Got it. Now, moving into how we leave Roshar. Massive time bubble around the whole planet. I think this is actually kind of clever by Mr. Sanderson here. With the knowledge of Mistborn Era 2, there's a lot of question marks moving into this book of like, what's going on Roshar? They even ask what's going on Roshar in Mistborn Era 2. They're like, there's a bunch of weird stuff going on. We can't contact them.
Oh, you're right. They do say that specifically. They're like, we can't contact Roshar right now.
Right. There's something blocking our
that.
contacts.
Yeah.
Remember this?
Yeah.
That was just explained here and explained very well. We have now locked Roshar in our little capsule while we go talk about Mistborn Era 3. Now, once we're done with Mistborn Era 3, we come back to Roshar. It's exactly where we left it. Once we learn what we get to know about Mistborn Era 3, we get to come back to Roshar 30 years later, 20 years later, where everywhere else has been 100 years, 200 years, whatever we need to learn about for the rest of Roshar. Sunlit Man spoilers. Sigzil leaves. Big Sunlit Man spoilers. Sigzil leaves and thinks to himself, oh man, I wish I could go home, but I can't. And even if I could, all my friends would be dead by now. That's not true anymore. He goes on his 100-year quests.
Oh, wow.
And that's not true anymore. He could go back to Roshar.
Oh, I didn't even think about this because we were hella confused by that. We were like, What do you mean? Is he super old? Why are all his friends? Is he immortal now? Oh man, no, it's as simple as time dilation.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's gotten to the 500th,
Huh.
whatever those Warbreaker things are, the breaths. 500 breaths. He's immortal, and he thinks to,
BTUs.
thank you. He goes back and he thinks to himself, "Oh, is that Kaladin? No, it's actually just Wit. But it couldn't be Kaladin because Kaladin's long dead. Now there's actually 2 reasons why that won't be the case."
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. You make a really good point. I was gonna say I hadn't thought about that, but you're so right. That frankly holds the Cosmere how it needs to be held
Correct.
for now. Roshar is still in this. We're not going to have book 6 be flying cars and cell phones. Like it's going to be medieval still, essentially medieval. And but Mistborn schedule is moving that direction of like flight and telephones, cell phones, all these things. And as we move towards Era 3, like that's just going to be more and more so. And that I think is great. It works. I get it. I am with you, Trevor, on I don't want this to be a tool to skip character ages too much.
Right.
At least as a major plot point. Yeah, that's kind of where I draw.
I'm actually a big fan of it for Roshar interacting with the Cosmere. I am not a big fan of it with Gavinor interacting with Dalinar or Shallan interacting with Adolin. If we're time dilating characters on the same planet, my brain turns off really fast. But if we're pausing Roshar while we go over here, that's actually really clever. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, it fits. I wonder. Side note: I wonder when Brandon decided there was a big time bubble around.
Yeah,
Roshar.
I am curious
I
about
can't.
that as well.
I wouldn't. I do not think that was in his initial script write up of the Way of Kings. So there's this planet Roshar, and there's this huge time bubble around it. But I think as the Cosmere took shape and the Cosmere expanded, he was able to use a great in Cosmere world mechanic to hold things where they are, and that checks out, But yeah, for the record with Shallan, back to Shallan's character, I don't want her to show up after having been in schedule for a while, and she shows up an old elderly lady with a fully grown child that Adolin is meeting for the first time as like a 25-year-old,
Could not agree more.
I do not want that.
And that is why I said when I started all this, I'm worried that I would also not be a fan of that. And I don't know that that's necessarily where it's heading. That's just one thought I had.
Yeah.
Where
it's
where
a
we
fear.
left Shallan off. Yeah, is she going to leave and we're going to have some weird, kind of disconnected relationships going on here? But I don't know. You mentioned it, Trevor. There is still a perpendicularity, at least one, if not more, on Roshar. She could find it. Maybe with the help of Venli.
Could she also not go to Urithiru and have Yasna pull her through?
Well, a couple things. The Urithiru bubble is a little weird.
Okay, yeah.
And I read this sections 3 times, and I don't know that I remember exactly what the details were. But doesn't Adolin also say something like, "Oh, we can't get to Urithiru"? And
they can't get to Urithiru because the only way you get there is either fly or via the Oath Gates, and you can't do either one of those.
Well, right, it's up in the mountains, but Moash and the Fuse did it, where they hiked through the mountains and got to Urithiru.
Uh-huh.
So I kind of read that as the bubble around Urithiru is like a physical barrier.
Physical, yeah.
Yeah, you can walk through. Like we have all our heroes who are kind of sequestered in various realms. We've frozen the border lines, but also Urithiru is still cut off from the rest of our heroes, and those people can't connect at all. So Yasna might be trapped in Urithiru. And yes, she has Tower Light to maybe in theory do the thing. Although I'm a little confused why Tower Light is still there if cultivation's gone. But anyway, maybe.
Yeah, I'm a little confused on why that couldn't happen. As if she goes to Urithiru and says, "Knock, knock, knock, Yasna, let me in."
Yeah.
I don't know how that would work, but I feel like that could be Plan B here.
Yeah. So with that, should we go ahead and talk about Navani right quick?
No,
Navani
we got to talk about Adolin and Dalinar.
Okay. All right. I'm like, there's like I have like essentially 2 seconds to say about Navani. That's
Okay.
about it.
Talk about Navani then.
My thought is so basically where we leave Navani is she's frozen and the tower's frozen, but the tower still works. The end.
And
that's essentially it, right?
And Yasna and Renarin, who we can talk about in a second later, they like find her encased in crystal.
Mm-hmm.
So she's like bonded to the sit, like physically embedded herself into the structure of the Urithiru Tower and is feeding the bubble. Again, kind of maybe a little bit trapped in time, almost. Of hit the pause button on Navani, we'll break her out later.
That I was going to bring that back up. Very clever, Brandon. I don't know if I give you as much credit on this one because this one seems a little bit more cheeky than the time dilation one. You just set up over the last 2 books that Navani is on the brink of so much technological advance. But we can't do that yet, so I'm going to put you to sleep for 100 years or whatever.
Yeah.
I just thought that was funny.
Exactly. So, the end of Navani, essentially, till who knows when. We can go back to Adolin now. Trevor?
Okay,
Adolin, take it away.
Didn't get his 2 cents with Dalinar. I have mixed feelings.
Which was the reason we assume he lives, by the way.
Correct.
Frankly, Adolin should be dead. If anyone in this book who lived should be dead, I think it's probably Adolin.
Yeah.
Like, full stop. But anyways. Or maybe Zeth, but Adolin.
But I will say, he lived long enough for Dalinar to give him the "I'm sorry" connection, feeling like warm feelies at the end, which he gave to everybody. He gave love to Navani, pride to Renarin, whatever I just said, regret, I think, to Adolin, and then courage to everybody else. And so he did live long enough to get a one-way street with Dalinar, but the street was already that direction. Like, Dalinar already felt sorry to Adolin. It was Adolin that needed to come back to Dalinar, and he did. He finally did. Dalinar just never got to know it. And I get that, people die and you don't always get closure in stories. So why should this one be any different? But it felt like that's where we were going, and to get that denied, maybe it feeds into Adolin later of him making sure to take his opportunities when he gets them. Like, I may never see you again, so I'm going to say this now. Like, maybe we get something like that in the future for Adolin. So
and we get him learning to read so that he can read what Dalinar wrote. And I think that's the point of this. But once again, to me, it feels like another, I guess, tick on the tally mark of... feels like we didn't get the closure we were expecting. To me, that it was... This one is, I guess, particularly painful. We do have the warm feelies moment, and the moment where Adolin, I would say, really appreciates Dalinar and things like that, and wants to talk to him. But we have that moment, and it's a big moment a couple chapters back where he survives because he's like, I've got to talk to my dad. Like, I've got to talk to Dalinar. So I was frankly really surprised that never happened and will never happen. If it was, yeah, essentially that's all. It feels like another, um, moment there where we don't get any of that closure we were expecting. Like I said, I think the wrap of this book has been very focused on the next books, not closing up what we have here. It's now, you're not going to have a conversation now, but you're going to maybe discover or pseudo have that through learning to read and reading what he wrote. So,
And as opposed to the Naturo one, which Eliot, you assumed previous episode that there was more there and it felt like there should be more there. I think this one is intentional by Brandon and this wasn't like a cut.
I agree.
I just think it's an interesting decision. I'm not super like disappointed in it. It's surprising to me that this never happened.
Yeah, I was sad. Maybe actually the saddest part of the end of this book is this bit. Dalinar dying. It didn't honestly feel super emotionally sad. It was more of a pride in Dalinar of sacrificing himself in that way.
Yeah.
But where it actually hit me, I think the moment that hit me the most is this one, where Adolin finally was ready to, I think, fully reconcile with Dalinar, and he never gets to. It's tough.
I agree. All right, who's next, Paul?
oh man, who I want to talk about is Wit, but I think we should go ahead and wrap up. I think we should go ahead and wrap up either the Jasnah, Renar, and R'hllane crew or Sigzil. I think we should talk about Jasnah, Renar, and R'hllane. Navani was kind of, at least on our outline on our notes, we have them together as a category, if you will. We talked about Navani, talked some about Jasnah. Renar and R'hllane, I feel like we didn't get as much as I was expecting. I think in the end of this book,
this feeds into the Mishram question, which we have at the bottom of the outline.
We might actually want to come back to them.
We can go ahead and talk about it now. The Mishram stuff. So they released. We talked. I don't know how many hours on this podcast about Ba-Ado-Mishram. We go into the spiritual realm. That's the whole point. We're going to go look for Ba-Ado-Mishram. We're going to release her. We're not going to release her. We're going to release her. Yep, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. We release her into book 6.
Yeah. We certainly do.
Okay.
So the previous episode, not the one from yesterday, but the one from last week, I was assuming that Ba-Ado-Mishram was going to have a major part in the contest.
Yeah.
Be kind of the X factor in that.
Yeah.
And that would make sense because there's been so much ambiguousness about that. I'm wondering what Ba-Ado-Mishram's role is going to be, because Ba-Ado-Mishram was kind of this entity that has been building up to rival ODM, or at least this vessel of ODM in a way. That's how I've been viewing Ba-Ado-Mishram. With Retribution, I feel like that changes. And going into the back half, I feel like Ba-Ado-Mishram won't matter. I'm sure there's a plan for that. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we'll revisit that and I'll be like, that's silly. That was dumb. How did I ever say that? But yeah, I felt like so much was poured into this book for that. And that was the whole a major point of Renarin, R'hllane, and Shallan in the spiritual realm doing this, all the way back to Kalak interludes at the start of the book, all centered around, do we release Ba-Ado-Mishram? Do we not? And we do, and we literally do not see anything else. after that. It's just not even like really mentioned, right? Like, do they mention anything after
They-
when we last saw?
They released Ba-Ado-Mishram. Honor. It's right at the split second where Honor and Dalinar are talking,
Okay.
and Honor's like, "Yeah, now that Ba-Ado-Mishram is free, now I'll take you. Now that humanity has regained its honor for that betrayal or whatever." But that's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. After the Retribution thing, after all of that, Retribution has one line of internal dialogue of, "Oh yeah, Ba-Ado-Mishram's on the planet. I should handle her at some point." And then somebody else has a line. Maya, I think, has a line of,
Mm-hmm.
"The dead eyes are healing," which,
Awesome, by the way.
yeah, great. It, in theory, tied to Ba-Ado-Mishram. That's it. And I'm not sure if I really feel this strongly about this, but I'll go ahead and say it. I think Ba-Ado-Mishram might be the biggest miss of this book. If there was just so much buildup for Ba-Ado-Mishram for so little. Like, if we're gonna go release her, great. Don't build her up this massive, like, rival to Odium if we're not gonna do anything with it. Like, you could have built that up later, Like, we're gonna release Ba-Ado-Mishram because it's the right thing to do. Oh, and now later, by the way, she's gonna fight Odium. Like, we learned that in book 6. That's what I would go for.
I think the one other purpose that Mishram fulfills, which I think is what Brandon was trying to get at, was just Renarin needed to be in danger.
Okay, yeah.
And Mishram is that danger. That decision that Renarin and Rlain make together to free Mishram needed to be a tough decision. And if we didn't think that Mishram was going to wreck the whole world, it would have been an easy decision, I think. But you're right. It almost feels like this is yet another thing that there's more in Brandon's notes about, of what is Mishram doing upon coming out of the gem. It does feel a little bit of, I don't know. I don't know if I'd state it quite as strongly as you, Trevor, but it didn't seem to go anywhere.
Now, I haven't ordered my best and not best moments from the book, but I would probably agree with what you're saying, Trevor. Primarily that if this was the plan to not have Ba-Ado-Mishram do something post-release, I think too much time was dedicated to it. I think you could probably have maybe some of the dilemma with a bit less of the time, because I mean, we spent a lot of time trying to figure out Ba-Ado-Mishram's role in this. A lot, because there was a lot of page time dedicated to that. And then to not see any of it, I think the point, once again, I've said this several times, I think the point of this book is not to conclude, but to set up for the next books.
So
which
what
once
you're saying
again was
is,
not what I was expecting.
So what you're saying is, when Ba-Ado-Mishram got spied out into the
Yes.
physical realm,
Yes,
you were disappointed.
Ba-Ado-Mishram was sped out. That's the type of thing I'm talking about. Like, it's always at the end of the book, they're like, "Oh, we're bringing everyone in, like, out of the spiritual realm, out of the physical, like, or the cognitive realm. Like, you're back." Like, yeah, literally everyone gets spat out at the end. So, yep, there we go. Was there anything?
I was just so just one more thing. It explains Ba-Ado-Mishram as a new storm entered the
Mhm.
the world or whatever. Like, those specific words were used, and I thought to myself, gosh darn it, Paul got his bingo slot. And then it's never mentioned again. And I'm like, what? What do you mean there's a new storm enters like the contest, or like it enters the world or whatever? What?
I was a little confused actually about the storm references, because that goes all the way back to the very beginning of the book.
Oh yeah.
There's the illusions
Literally.
and the foreshadowing of a new storm is coming. I'm kind of left with a question here at the end. Is the storm that was being referenced Mishram, or is it supposed to be a reference to retribution and it's more metaphorical and it's not? Like, it seems like the Everstorm is still pretty Everstormy. So I don't know if I'd classify it as a new storm. But could that be what those illusions are pointing to?
I have mixed feelings on this, because a new storm was absolutely mentioned and referenced. It literally said a new storm
A
enters.
third storm, right?
Correct.
Or-
Yes.
Yeah.
It says a new storm is released when Ba-Ado-Mishram leave. It gets spat out. And then at the end of the book, we have the everlasting Everstorm. Should have seen that one coming, I guess. And it's just Everstorm light. There's a little bit less lightning. It's a little bit less like foreboding. We could live under this, I guess. It's not like, damnation come to Roshar. It's just kind of like, oh yeah, there's red clouds and there's lightning sometimes. And that's it. I'm just so confused. I'm not necessarily disappointed. I'm just have a lot more questions than I thought I would.
And I thought by the beginning of this book, I think it was in our preview chapters somewhere
I
about
think so.
this third storm. It's mentioned pretty early. It's hinted at. And I'm like, oh boy, free bingo
Easy
slot for
peasy.
me. And at the end of the book, I genuinely could not tell you if there's a third storm or not, or if it is. Like, I was also a bit with Eliot of like, is this third storm really in the room with us now? Like, is this just a figurative storm that's coming to Roshar? So yeah. Anywho, do y'all have anything else with Renarin and Relaine? So much of their progression, them wanting to stand and let Ba-Ado-Mishram see them together, things like that. It was all about Ba-Ado-Mishram. So obviously we went on the BAM tangent. But there wasn't much else with them. Was it? There's a bit. We do come back to who is leading the people at the end. That's actually the bigger moment there. I don't need to gloss over that.
So something I do want to notice about both of them is their vision at the beginning of the book, or day 2 of the book, comes true sort of, which I think is interesting. They have a vision. There's 5 panes in their vision, and they see one with a bunch of people standing in Shinovar. That one, came true. There's one of them, of both of them, sitting in Renarin's childhood room in Kholinar together, I think.
And aren't they wearing like singer clothing?
Yes, they're wearing singer clothing, or at least Renarin is. And that one came true, kind of. They're like together, and they're gonna hang out at Urithiru. But it's not Kholinar. We lost the Contest of Champions, or we voided it. And so they're not in Kholinar. So I just wanted to point that out, that vision is at least yet to come true.
I feel like that's all the Renarin stuff throughout all 5 books is going to require like some years of study and research here. Those plot lines are the most confusing. Is what role exactly did Renarin play in all of this? That's going to require some deep copper minding.
Yeah, I think you're right. What we do see as it goes with Renarin and Jasnah, right, is they set up the government going forward. So Dalinar is gone to the beyond. Adolin and Renarin both are refusing the leadership role, the foremost king role here. So one of the other high princes gets pissed off that, hey, it's not just going to me, that we're talking about implementing a new system entirely. Kind of views Yasna as the resident expert on that topic. Is that right? And then they work to set that up. So it's kind of, I don't know if it we don't see that put into place, but pretty confirmed that we're moving to Eliot mentioned it earlier, but a bit of like a democratic republic with voting, and I anticipate
Write your congressman.
things like that. Yes, yeah, Congress people, yeah, all that
Do you
jazz.
think like floors of your theater have different representatives, or do you think it's like classes, or how do they split that?
Yeah,
like house districts,
gerrymandering on
yeah.
Gonna
like
be a problem.
Are stairwells included in this level, or
yeah. They'll have to sort all that out.
I want to know, Brandon. I want to know about that in book 6. Please include it.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure.
Gerrymandering voting in your theater.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get some political science going.
He can write you like an interim novella all about the poli-sci system in your theater.
Yeah, there we go.
I mean, we joke about that in Mistborn Era 2. That's like literally a plot point of like the political corruption of Elendil.
Yeah.
So we need Marasi to come and do a research paper on the political structures of Roshar.
There we go. I'm ready for it.
All right. Time for the segment everyone's been waiting for.
Yeah, let's talk about Sigzil and Auxiliary. Auxiliary.
Right. So Sigzil is hopped on the Iriali bandwagon, literally.
Yeah.
And is carting himself off to presumably Scadrial, because that's where they're going. And 12124, aka Ox, as everyone in our Discord and everyone in the YouTube channel let me know that 12124, like I literally got like 10 or 12 or 20 separate messages about, but did you know that 12124 spells AUX and whatever that. Yes. So, all that to say, what character growth from 12124 between Wind and Truth and Sunlit Man? And I'm sure I will never get to see it, but Auxiliary, top 5 characters in the Cosmere, 12124 doesn't even make the list because he's so forgettable.
And I don't want to gloat too much. We did try to convince you. You didn't listen, but it's okay. We've got
not only did you try to convince me, you tried to convince me for like 20 minutes.
We did. We fought you, and you were not listening. But it's okay. It's okay. We all have our moments. It's okay. What this leaves me with, though, actually, is questions now about the plot line of Sigzil and Auxiliary as it stretches across these 2 books, the other being Sunlit Man. And if this isn't clear already, Sunlit Man spoilers, please go read that book.
That book is so worth reading. Don't let yourself get spoiled on it.
It is, yes. There are some really cool moments in Sunlit Man. It is absolutely worth pausing this episode, skipping 5 minutes ahead in this episode to not be spoiled on what I'm about to talk about. Having read Sunlit Man first, now that I think about it, is kind of weird.
I think that's the conclusion that a lot of people come to, yes.
And we are literally discussing this in our Discord channel right now. As we are recording this right now, I'm watching the chat go by in our Discord channel as we talk about this exact fact. Do you read Sunlit Man before Wind and Truth or after Wind and Truth? For, I think, this relationship right here between Sigzil and Auxiliary. And I think I'm going to end up on the fence here of, I think you should read Sunlit Man after Wind and Truth, because I think this storyline picks up fairly naturally in that book of what we've seen 12124 go on this journey of, from I need to treat you as a servant to you are someone worth dying for. That is a progression. That is a character arc of huge proportions. And we kind of read it backwards.
Yeah. I mean, it was kind of written backwards. Not
It
our
was.
fault.
It was.
In my defense,
Yeah.
I assigned it as it was published.
And we didn't know that at the time. So it's
Yeah.
not like we were super like spoiled on anything really. But I almost want to say read it in the other order so you can follow 12124 on that whole journey.
Okay, no, back up. Let's play it if we did read it in chronological order. You would be so against Auxiliary for the first half of that book.
Trevor, you would be so against Auxiliary in the first half of that book. I was going to say,
because he's a bozo.
It's interesting.
Reading about 12124, obviously I hated him initially because I thought he was intentionally trying to sabotage Zeth. Back when I've given this tangent. This is akin to the last tangent we gave you about Auxiliary. Once we've moved past that, where I knew his intentions were genuine, I no longer held on to that frustration with him. So now I don't have a problem. I think I would be fine finishing this book, picking it up. I would think I would actually. What I was actually going to say is I feel like they have a weird relationship, the two books, because it's not the crux, so it's obviously not a major problem. But a big part of Sunlit Man is the reveal that it's Sigzil. So it's like you can read it,
Thanks for the
find
point
out it's Sigzil, then you go and read Wind and Truth and see it happen. Or you read this, know that this has happened, you pick up, you're like, ooh, Ox, okay, I'm in tuned. You obviously know it's Sigzil from the beginning, and there you go. You know, it might be different. But yeah, it's a weird relationship between the two books.
You bring up a great point.
I also want to add, while I am glad to see this moment, and I do not have the same feelings that you do about Auxiliary here. Once again, I'm glad to see this moment, but I would much rather this have been. Well, okay. I have a couple thoughts. So the moment where 12124 comes to Sigzil, I wasn't expecting to see in this book. I was expecting that we'd see him leave Zeth, and then later down the road, if at all that we see it, this happens.
Which is why I had you put money on the table in that episode, that if we'd see this, and you're like, no, we already saw it, we're not going to see it again. And we see it again, that it's Auxiliary.
And yeah, so we did get this. It's something that we knew was going to happen already. You weren't convinced, but everyone else was. And with so many of the things that we've mentioned today that we wanted to see, I'm a bit disappointed that this is here and other things aren't. If I guess that's nothing against this. I want to have it all. You know, of course I want to have my cake and eat it too. But I don't know, especially because those pieces are so put togetherable. That's a good verb for you. It's so easy to put together. I think, and most people going into Wind and Truth know this is going to happen at some point. Sigzil is going to get this other sprint at some point. We just didn't know where that sprint came from. Still TBD. I think it's okay for some of that to be off screen, and I'm not complaining about seeing it. It's a good scene. I like it. But I feel like it didn't need to have this spot at the end of the book that it has, honestly.
I think I'm going to land firmly in the fence that Sunlit should be read before, because if you read it in publication order, you get to Sigzil has a Dawn Shard. What? And it broke his spren. What? But he's a Skybreaker Windbreaker. You don't get any of that if you read it the other direction, right? You've already seen all that. And what you were saying earlier, Paul, you're going to pick up, if you read Wind and Truth and then immediately pick up Sunlit Man, which I imagine is a decent reading order for like a lot of people. Like, I think that would be a pretty good progression. You're going to pick up that book and think, what do you mean Sigzil's broken? What do you mean Auxiliary is the guy who's got it together? Like, the entire book is Auxiliary pulling Sigzil out of the gutter and getting him to care. And you're like, what? These characters are flipped in Wind and Truth. Like, Auxiliary is just learning how to be a normal person in Wind and Truth. And then you skip forward to Sunlit and you're like, Sigzil has no cares about people dying next to him. What do you mean? This is not Sigzil.
Well, maybe I would love to talk to someone who has read it in that order to get their impressions, because I think I could kind of see where Sigzil would be there. In this scene here in Wind and Truth, he's going to Sigzil is going to Lirin, and he's pretty broken. He is not handling the death of his spren well.
Yeah.
He killed Vienta. Now, made her a Deadeye, I guess, and she's going to heal from being a Deadeye, because we've just learned that Deadeyes are all going to heal, right? So complicated. It's complicated is the relationship he has with
the relationship
Vienta
status
at this point.
How many of those do we have now, Paul? Those it's complicated statuses?
Oh, several. Yeah.
A lot.
It's
but
very complicated right now.
He's mentally not in a good place here at the end of this. He's almost like in a stupor as he's trying to, like, what is going on? He's at a low. So to pick him up in that place we see him at the beginning of Sunlit Man, I don't know if that would be too much of a stretch. Of a stretch.
But Paul, to Paul's point, you don't even know it's Sigzil.
True.
If you read Sunlit. That's the whole point of, like, whoa, this guy needs to care about life.
Yeah.
And then you find out it's Sigzil, like, a third of the way through the book, and you're like, oh, what happened to get us here? And you lose all of that.
The more I've thought about it, the more I do think you should read Sunlit Man first.
Yes.
I think if you read Wind and Truth first and you haven't read Sunlit Man, first of all, the comment about Auxiliary and things like that mean nothing. Like, you're not picking that up. And you could probably pick up that, okay, this was Zeth's spren, and then you go pick up Sunlit Man, you're probably thinking, oh, is there going to be mention of Zeth? Or I don't know, like, you were looking for a connection back, but it connects the other way. I don't know. It's a bit odd of a connection between these books. And I agree. I think so many of the punches that book has are the crazy reveals to someone who has not made it to the end of Wind and Truth about the status that Sigzil is in at this point in time. Like, having a Dawn Shard, the state he's in, like, absolutely makes your mind race and wonder. And I think so much of the curiosity and questioning goes away if you have read Wind and Truth.
I have a lot of thoughts. And part of me really wants to crush the two of you and show you how I'm right. But that will take another 30 minutes, and I do think we got to move on to the rest of these chapters. It's going to take too long. I think I might still fall in it might be curious to read Sunlit Man after Wind and Truth. I'd love to hear from someone who did that. If you're out there and you did that, let us know how that experience felt for you. I'd be very curious. maybe we'll debate this further later.
Fascinating scenario, actually, that we have ended up in to debate this. Like the amount of permutations through the Cosmere to get us to this publication order versus anyway. Fascinating.
All right. We should talk about Wit now.
Wit gets zapped to Scadrial.
He does. That's your title. Oh, quick note. Moving on from Sigzil to Wit. For those of you who aren't watching, or if you are watching and you've been wondering why I have a bunch of numbers under my name, I decided to make my name as akin to Aux, 12124 being the number 1, the number 21, and the number 24 for AUX. I did Paul the same way, so I've got 16, 1, 21, 12, which spells Paul. So very cool. Under Trevor's name, he has zapped to Scadrial, which is Wit.
I'm now going to refer to you as that for the rest of your life, Paul. 16, 1, 21, 12.
Yes, there we go.
It doesn't roll off the tongue like 24601 does though.
No,
yeah, you're right.
Can't throw it in a musical for Les Mis.
Yeah.
But let's talk about Wit. So he gets teleported to a petri dish on Scadrial.
Who had that on their bingo cards?
None other than Ulam. Ulam the Khandra.
From?
Who we last saw in Tress.
Tress of the Emerald Sea.
Apparently has been carefully nurturing a petri dish full of some of Hoid in a lab on Scadrial. And apparently what's happened here is upon the deletion of Hoid on Roshar, his body recreates itself from the largest remaining specimen of him.
As like Shardplate does.
Right. And that specimen happens to be in this lab on Scadrial, so poof, he's still okay, and he's back on Scadrial. There you go.
So he that happens, and Hoid is frustrated and mad at Dalinar for having blundered this whole situation and freeing Odium and Retribution out onto the Cosmere. But then he thinks for a minute, he stops, he considers, realizes Dalinar pulled a move of genius. Insert all the things we talked about last episode, as Dalinar's gambit being something good for the Cosmere, allegedly, rather than detrimental.
He does something very important. Very, very important in this scene. You kind of glossed over it there, Paul. What does he do before he comes to the realization that what Dalinar did is genius? Do you remember?
I don't remember. So don't feel bad if you don't either, Paul.
Yeah, I'm not certain to know exactly what you're referring to.
The era of Eliot gets to ask leading questions has arrived.
True.
What he does is he pulls out. Do you remember this thing? He's used it before. He's got a bone.
Oh yeah, his Dragonsteel Prime bone. Apparently,
yeah. He has a bone. It's described as something else. It's like a bone something. I can't remember what it is actually. But he
his
pulls
bone
out
phone.
Yeah, he pulls out the bone phone and he calls somebody. He contacts somebody, and after that, he comes to the realization that what Dalinar done is genius.
I think it's actually great that Wit flips like this, because what have half of our epigraphs this entire series been?
Letters from Hoid.
Letters from Hoid.
Yep.
To Shards,
voicemails apparently,
dragons, whoever is listening. Please come help Roshar. Please, I beg you. Please, please, Odium is this massive threat. We need to handle him now. What are the other half of the epigraphs been? Letters back to Hoyd saying, no. And so this whole time, Hoyd's like, we're alone. We need to handle Odium. We need to handle Odium. It's just us. It's just us. It's just us. He gets let. The genie finally gets let out of the lamp, as we talked so many episodes ago. Hoyd initially says, oh no, Dalinar, you idiot. What on earth have you done? And then he's like, well, wait a minute. This is what the shards need. The shards need an imminent threat. Because when a shard is under threat, it then acts. Here's the problem, though. And I talked about this, I think, yesterday. These two episodes are running together for me. I think all the shards are going to look at each other and say, you first. And I think they're still going to be stuck in inaction. I do think there will be an epic shard fight in the back half of Stormlight, or whatever we're going to call Cosmere Phase 3, or whatever this is going to enter into. I think there's going to be some casualties of shards. I wonder, this goes into the epilogue. Wit says, unless I'm making this up, hey, I need to go find Valor. Right?
Yes.
Is Valor going to be first into the fire?
Here's what I think. I think I may be going down a thought path that you're starting to explore, Trevor, of I'm not convinced that the rest of the shards are going to band together to face retribution. If we've learned anything, it's that shards don't seem to get along.
Right.
Except for maybe honor and cultivation during a brief period of time of romance.
Right.
Most
And
of the rest of the time.
maybe Dominion and Devotion, depending on who you talk to, but we don't know much about that.
Yeah, we don't really know, though. Like, maybe.
Right.
Maybe. But anyway, the other, how many are left? 12? 11?
Something like that.
11, 12?
13.
There's a bunch that are dead now. Anyway, however many are left, them coming together and forming a peaceful team to go against, I don't see that happening. I mean, we've also got autonomy out there running around. You know, we've got multiple problems going on. I think at best, we get 3.
Which are? Name them now.
Well, okay. So I think Hoyd has realized his best bet is Valor. He needs Valor to spearhead the team. He needs, his new motive is going to be the same as it always was, I guess, of get the shards together and go after the big bad guy. I think he knows that Valor has to be there or the rest of them are not going to join up. So he's like, okay, I got to go chase down Valor. We got to have Valor first. So he goes against Valor. Valor's one of them. Who is going to join with Valor?
I'll throw in my prediction. I agree with you on Valor. It's going to be Valor, Reason, Harmony.
Reason's our new name we just discovered. Could very well be Harmony. No, it won't be Harmony.
Harmony's going to try and fail.
Harmony will want to join.
Correct.
That's what I was going to throw. I was going to throw that out there. I think Harmony is being a little bit meta. I think just what we understand about Harmony and the vessel of Harmony, I think Harmony would respond to Hoyd and say, yes, I want to help you out, you know. But as far as the limitations of the shard, I don't know. Don't know if he could. Maybe there's a role, but not a combative one, probably.
I think the Nalthus one is going to be a big player.
Endowment?
Yeah, Endowment. I think Endowment is going to come out from behind the curtain and get involved. So Endowment, Valor, somebody else.
Ambition? No, Autonomy. That's what I meant. Ambition's dead.
Ambition is dead. I think Autonomy is the definition of the name. Autonomy is not joining any teams.
Yeah, fair enough.
Autonomy is going to continue to cause problems. That's going to be part of the problem. Now we have to deal with Autonomy and Retribution.
Yeah.
What about invention? Right, that's one.
Yeah, there's an interesting one.
Invention could join the crew. I think
No, invention doesn't care.
provide assistance in some way. See it as a progressive way to invent and move forward. I don't know.
If shards fight and new shards are made, that's just part of his thing. Like, we're just progressing the Cosmere. I'm fine with that.
Taking a step back, I want to ask what your thoughts are about this Wit chapter, this Hoid chapter. Hoid is a character that I guess we get some closure on at the end of the story, at least as to where he is and where he will be. We know that clearly. We have a clear timeline. How do you feel about this being in this book? I ask that because I think this is a prime example of why I don't think you can hand someone Stormlight first, even if they like epic fantasy. I think they have to now. It is core. It is too far down the Cosmere overall rabbit hole. It is no longer, this is the Stormlight Archive, which is a part of the Cosmere. It is now, you start on Roshar, and this is a Cosmere series. And I personally wasn't a fan of that, I guess. I felt like it's too far. I feel like you can't just read Stormlight, and I kind of wanted people to be able to just read Stormlight and get the Stormlight story.
I see what you're saying. I could still be fine with it. There will be things in the book where you're like, huh? I've just read 6,000 pages, and you're dropping me in a petri dish on skyscrapers with guns. What on earth just happened? But I think that's fine. I think at this point, by Wind and Truth, even if you've just read Stormlight, you will understand that there will be things in the book that are not for you, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually think that might be something that we should encourage, like as experienced and completist Cosmere readers. We shouldn't pressure new readers to have to go read everything, and might actually need to actively encourage people. It's okay that this epilogue does not make any sense. It is okay for you to read, Wind and Truth, go, what the heck just happened to Hoid, and just set the book down and be okay with that. That's totally fine.
And I think I agree with you to a degree. The whole thing I keep falling back on is perhaps I had the wrong impression, but I've been thinking of this as like Mistborn Era 1 is 3 books that concludes, right? Mistborn Era 2 is 4 books that conclude. Stormlight Pseudo Era 1, what I thought would be Era 1, does not conclude. I do not think this is concluded at all.
I think that's fair.
And I think maybe by the time we have Stormlight 10 and there's conclusion, I think maybe I could say, yeah, read this. If stuff doesn't make sense, that's fine. But right now, I could not hand someone these 5 books without an understanding of the Cosmere and say, hey, read this. I feel like if they get to the end and didn't have these connections to fall back on, it'd be like, that made no sense. This crazy stuff happened and it broke all the rules, and now someone's on some in the future. Like, what? I think which I doubt there are many people who just read Stormlight.
I disagree with that. I think there will be plenty of people who pick up Stormlight and read Stormlight.
And I hope so. I know a lot of people do that, but I think if I were that person, I would be. I feel like I'm annoyed on their behalf. I don't know if that's right or not, but I think I am annoyed on their behalf, and a bit for myself, just I guess expecting book 5 to have closure. But yeah, I felt like it was. This is so we talked about this before the book as well, of this is going to be a telling book as to, are there going to be on-ramps to the Cosmere? Are we going full Cosmere? Are we staying zoomed into our stories? This answers that question that we are not staying zoomed into stories. We are zooming out to Cosmere, interconnectivity, a bit of that kind of Marvel like vibe. That is where we are, and I think this Wit chapter was the formal announcement of that.
Yeah. Well, okay. So take the Avengers. You watch the Avengers. You've read the first, or I'm sorry, you've watched the first 4 superhero movies: Thor, Captain America, whatever. And then you watch the Avengers, and you're like, "Oh, that was cool." And then you get to the post-credit scene, and Thanos walks in and grabs his gauntlet and says, "Fine, I'll do it myself." To those in the know, that's like, "Oh, that's super cool." To 95% of the audience, you're like, "Huh? I guess that's a spoiler for something. I don't know." Would you not say the same thing here?
You do have a good point with that. I agree that it is like a character that we know is a post credit scene. You're absolutely right about that. So yeah, I see that. I get that. I'm just re-clarifying that we're going down that avenue of. It's a bit different than that though, because there's obviously comparisons and differences, but we're going down this whole Cosmere. I feel like it'd be like Thanos saying that, but he's in the Death Star or something. It's like, how did we get here? Like, it's not just a character that we know. It's a character we know in a place that makes zero logical sense.
Sure.
Unless you are in the know.
I think what you're trying to get at, Paul, I think I might actually resonate with a little bit. Maybe not quite as strong as you are, but I think what you're saying is, because of how this book has ended in Wind and Truth, it's a little bit difficult to treat these 5 books as a completely standalone series. If someone is out there looking for just epic fantasy, they don't really want sci-fi, they don't really want whimsical, cozy fantasy, they want Lord of the Rings, they want Wheel of Time. You can't say just pick up Stormlight Era 1 and just be fine with that. So, some people will. Some people can do that. I think it's possible. But the way the end of this book opens the door, the way the end of this book really kind of launches us off into, oh my goodness, what is the Cosmere going to do next? That might be an unsatisfying place to end for people who didn't really intend to go further. I think that might be what you're saying.
I think that's well put. I would agree with that.
All right. A couple loose things at the end of this episode that we need to briefly discuss. Roshar. Time dilation we covered. The Everstorm we, covered. Is this... We have now redefined the Night of Sorrows. We were meant to think that we've already had the Night of Sorrows somewhere in our long history of Vorinism. Nope, turns out this is the Night of Sorrows, the everlasting storm. And it's cloudy with a chance of lightning all the time on Roshar. Is that encasing the planet like Yumi style? Or is that like a cloud over Roshar, the continent? I'm not sure it matters a lot, but I'm wondering if our islands but the Wandersail Islands by the Origin, do they know that Retribution just won, or do they care?
I don't know.
Me neither. No more Stormlight.
This is the bigger part of that, I think, is the high storm is gone.
What makes Roshar so cool is gone.
Yeah.
I'm gutted. to be honest.
Rest in peace. Yeah, rest in peace, High Storm.
High Storm is gone. None of this every 7 days or whatever. The High Storm rolls over, and no more Stormlight at all, ever. I mean, okay, who knows what's going to happen in the future, right? Maybe Honor comes back, yada, yada, yada. But as far as we can tell, all of our Radiants, unless you're in your Etheru, are now powerless.
Or go find that magic serum that they have in Mistborn Era 2 that fuels any type of investiture. Remember that?
Yes. Isn't it?
They
They just straight up have. It's the stuff from
untapped
Cell.
door, right? Yeah, it's like
door.
It's got the magic potion that fuels their allomancy. Go find that.
Yes. So, and I think this is part of the conversation that Shallan has with Thydakar. Stormlight was supposed to be this super valuable new discovery.
Yep. That's why the Ghostbloods were there.
The entire reason why the Ghostbloods were there is, oh my goodness, you have a new source of Stormlight or of investiture that we can cart around and use to power our things. Nope, gone.
Unless you're on Odium's side, he'd probably give it to you, or Retribution side. Man, that's going to be weird to say now.
For sure.
I mean,
but we still have Tower Light. We still have, I guess we'll call it Warlight for...
Warlight. I assume it's Warlight.
Lack of a different term that we might get later.
Brief side note on that. So we have Tower Light. Earlier, Trevor made a mention about how does that work without cultivation. That's not what I'm getting at. But we were talking about shards that would fight. Cultivation, you could probably throw that hat in the ring. Cultivation has seen firsthand what's going on.
Maybe.
I think cultivation's going to come back.
I think she might be hiding for a while.
Yeah, for a while. But like ultimately when this happens, I think cultivation is going to be involved. I think it'd be silly if after all this, cultivation just hightails it. Coward card, and that's it. Who knows? That's really spitballing far out. But
cultivation just needs a rousing speech from Valor to re-inspire her.
Yeah, there we go.
And then to be spat back on Roshar.
Yep, spat back. Yeah.
Just a side note, as much as we learned about honor in day 9, I think it was, it was day 9. My view of shards actually went down in this book because honor had no idea what he was doing for centuries. Like he got shaken up, and I think the same thing is going to happen to cultivation. Like cultivation gets her whole world rocked just now, runs off Roshar. And when that happens to honor, he stares at a wall for 500 years. And I'm like, these are supposed to be shards, dude. Like, what is going on?
Yeah, you are right about that. They, I should not doubt their ever powerful ability to be a bit lousy. So
I think I said this 6 episodes ago or something like that. I feel like one of my bigger takeaways from the Cosmere as a whole is godhood drives you insane.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, it is time. I'm going to hijack you in case you were going a different direction.
Moash?
Yes, that one. Okay,
Moash.
so we ranted earlier about Mishram. I have a way bigger issue with the fact that we got absolutely zero closure on Moash. How actually, I'm not honestly too bothered by this. Actually, I think it would have confused our already lots of crazy other events that were going in the back here. I'm not advocating that we should have added in a Moash vaccine here too. However, I cannot believe that we made it all the way through book 5 of Stormlight and we didn't resolve the Moash thing.
Insane.
Holy smokes.
We didn't even touch
Moash.
No. He got spiked and that's it.
Yeah.
That is literally incredible. Toy Story. I don't want to play with you anymore and just drop Moash.
Okay, so what I think would have been really interesting, I'm not going to say better or worse, is to not mention Moash ever. Would have been really, really crazy. Like, if you're not going to do anything with Moash, I'm fine with that. If he is a player in the back half, if you're going to make him death to for Stormlight to, the
Well, and the fact that Kaladin's coming back. Kaladin
Sure.
is coming back.
Yeah.
Moash is going to be there. Okay, obviously we've punted this to back half. Okay, I would never have predicted that, but okay.
Me neither. I was 100% sure Moash was going to die by the end of this book. Either Kaladin or Rock or Sigzil was going to do it. I fine. None of that absolutely happened at all. I would have been more interested if Moash was never on page and he just shows up in Stormlight 6 with spikes in his eyes. Like, that would have been crazy. But
I do.
All we get is spikes in his eyes.
Yeah, I was gonna say I do appreciate the moments that we did get. You're right, and once again, it's a +1 tally on the mark of things that I thought would have closure in this book. That once again, this book is not a closure book. It is a setup book for the next ones. But it does make me wonder, where are we going with Moash, because we have really, like, Moash Kaladin is like a pinnacle primary and amazing dynamic that Brandon had set up. Absolutely love it. I think everyone in the fan, I feel like it's like unanimous of like everyone has at least strong opinions about
Right.
Moash. Everyone loves Kaladin. Everyone sees the you go back and you rereading The Way of Kings after knowing what we know is like heart-wrenching, like with Moash and Kaladin. Like it's tough, it's brutal, and like seeing the characters go through the same things and take different paths is such a huge deal. Is that going to be a book 10 thing?
I mean, if you'd asked me this like 3 weeks ago, I would have said absolutely not.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
Crazy, we'll come back in 2040 to talk about this, but I think we are going to get to a point where we are going to have some crazy way, not exactly this, but in a sentiment, Kaladin as honor and Moash as odium level power clashing and fighting, like at that time. If anything, like we have Kaladin now as a herald, we're gonna have Moash elevated to some semblance of an equivalent. I think that has to stay consistent. If it's a weird imbalance, then like it's no longer this like rivalry. But yeah, something meaningful happening with Moash. I think everyone would have had on their bingo card going into this book, whether that's redemption, whether that's death, whether that's vengeance, whether that's whatever. People definitely were expecting that. So yeah, you'll make a great point. Funny enough, I didn't even think about it until now. It's crazy, but like there's a lot going on.
No, we entered day 10 without a Moash resolution. I was like, hold up. Where did he go? Because he's not in day like I knew going to day 10, he's not in day 10. And I was like, we're really just hosing Moash.
He's just on the shelf for now.
Right.
To go with my Toy Story analogy, he's Wheezy up at the top shelf, up there collecting dust.
It's just shocking because it felt like there was so much buildup in books 2, 3, and 4, probably specifically.
Even 1, yeah. Like it's been such a thing.
To not revisit that in this book seems wild. I can accept it. I can accept it. If we're, like I said, if we're punting it to the second half, we're going to address it there. Fine, cool. But crazy.
I have one question about this. When is it that we have a moment between Todium and Moash that he kind of like sets Moash's goal to be tormenting Kaladin? Isn't that right?
That was,
or was
old
it
Odium. That was in Rhythm of War, and that was old Odium.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay, so things have changed. We can scrap that then.
So, something that this is directly relevant to Moash. Something else that we punted to the back half and didn't even talk about at all when in truth is Champion with 9 Shadows. So something that we had huge foreshadowing for the first 3 books was Odium's Champion with 9 Shadows. We're gonna fight him. Blah 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 blah. Moash has 9 shadows in the chasms.
Okay, I thought about this a lot. That is something I have not forgotten about ever since we ever got a mention of that. It has been in my brain. It's been right there. I'm assuming at this point that champion that you're talking about is going to be this Blackthorn. I'm assuming that is going to be
Dalinar
the fulfillment there. That's where I'm landing with that at this time.
I assume it's still Moash, and it'll be Kaladin versus Moash, Honor versus Odium, Book 8 or whatever that we're gonna go do. But we'll see in, like you said, 2040.
Yep.
A couple of other loose ends that I thought would have at least gotten a little bit. We probably don't need to analyze these overly, but Rock. I think, Trevor, you told us before that we were never seeing Rock again. And so far, you've been right.
I said we were never seeing Rock again, except for the novella, but I also put Rock as dialogue on my bingo board. So I kind of split the...
You're hedging your bets.
Correct. I hedged my bets, and I was... Yeah. Anyway.
Not a mention, not a thought of Rock. Xyle got that interlude where Lift saves him.
Yeah.
So now what?
He's stuck in the tower with everybody.
Is he? So is he stuck in Urithiru now with the team?
Unless he jumped out real quick before everything went down, which is possible.
Okay.
If he jumped out, he's probably going to get spat out. So
he spat himself out into Shadesmar.
My goodness.
This one doesn't feel like a loose end to me. I thought more things might happen this book, but it not happening is fine. Because they ended up saying, like, Xyle was like, "Wow, you're really powerful, Lift. What would happen if you had a professional coach and trainer?" So he's gonna coach and train Lift. Yeah, that felt like conclusion to me. I'm like, we'll pick up in Lift's book or something. But yeah, Rock. I didn't know. I could have gone either way about seeing Horneater will come out. That'll be great.
I was not expecting to see Rock. I was hoping to see Rock.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I agree.
Paul, you have Shallan on here. Obviously she's a loose end, but we've discussed this. So
I added her to this list. Yeah, and for the reasons we talked about before, it felt to me like, once again, I was expecting closure for a lot of our characters that we didn't get, and if any of them should have gotten closure, I think it should have been Shallan and Adolin. They've been so primary to our story. So yeah, that's it in my loose end category there.
Okay. Over to you, Eliot.
I have 2 last things for you guys to try to land this plane to bring us back around to processing the end of Wind of Truth. The first one is actually an intriguing one that I realized on my very first read because I remembered it. In the postlude, we talked a lot about Kaladin. We didn't talk too much about the Heralds. So all the Heralds are there. Kalak is the point of view. He's like kind of freaking out a little bit, and Kaladin kind of calms him down. The book ends, like the final few paragraphs of the book. The key element running through those is Town forgiving all the rest of the Heralds. Do you guys remember this? Kind of those last few sentences?
Oh, absolutely. I remember this.
As they kind of build it up, and it's like, oh my goodness, but Town's there. He's going to squash me like a bug. And Town forgives them all for abandoning him alone on Braze to hold back the apocalypse alone. As I read that, I thought, oh man, what a bookend. All the way back to the prelude to the Way of Kings, which Paul, I think you might have pointed this out at some point. Kalak is the point of view in that as well. And cast your mind back almost 5.5 years to the very first episode of Following Noadon. If you do go back and listen to it, I apologize for the audio quality. It is not the best, but
There's a remastered version out there somewhere. You have to
go find the remaster, and the audio quality gets better later. In that very first episode, in the first 10 minutes, it is one of the first things I say on this entire podcast 5.5 years ago.
I remember this very vividly.
One of the first things I ever say on this podcast is, oh man, that guy is going to be really pissed.
Yep.
Yeah.
And what are the very last words of the entire series? And Taln forgave them. I find that really cool, actually.
Yeah.
I agree entirely. I really am so glad you brought that up. I have to say, I think that is, Kaladin, Dalinar, favorite characters, awesome moments, big things. This was the best, like kind of the sweetest part of the ending. I think this notion that the heralds are gonna heal, and hanging on the crux of Taln forgives them, and they get to move forward, being forgiven. They all understand. They all seem to regret what they did, and having that forgiveness is so crucial. And yeah, I don't even know what to say about it. I just want to say things because that was such a great moment. Absolutely wonderful way to wrap this up. I sure hope people listening, I feel like I've sounded like I've been complaining a lot. This is still a good book. I have lots of thoughts and emotions and opinions. Definitely my thoughts and emotions on this were, wow, that's a great cap, a great postlude connecting to the prelude we read so long ago.
I hate that term, by the way. As soon as I heard postlude read by Michael Kramer, I was like, ew, that sounds so gross.
I thought it was cool. I liked it.
Well, prelude sounds so much better than postlude, but
what do you want?
They're
Epilude?
both real. They're both real things, Trevor. They're both real things. Okay. Anyways, that and also seeing Kalak, yeah, the connection there. Kalak, I've been a Kalak fan the whole time. I didn't particularly like him whenever we first met him again in Rhythm of War, but in this book, he's grown on me. And yeah, if there's one Kalak fan out there, it is me. I hate to admit it, but it is also largely swayed by when I first saw the art for Kalak. I thought it was so cool.
Yeah.
It's quite edgy. So there we go.
All right, Eliot. Your theme.
Okay. Theme. Yes. I've kept this up. I need to close it out. Theme for day 10. This is just kind of my thoughts. I pulled on some of my co-host thoughts too to try and form this before we started recording. Trying to pick a single word that sums up just day 10 of Wind and Truth. I'll talk about my thoughts for the entire book when we do our book wrap-up episode. But some of the biggest things that I noticed that I took out of day 10, I tried to tie into the word choose. The idea of making a decision and trusting yourself, believing in yourself, building on what all you've become on the journey you've gone on, and making that decision based on that. Because we see a lot of our characters do this. We see Dalinar make a epically huge decision, fate of the entire Cosmere level decision. And who kind of maybe gives him the nudge towards that? It's Navani. As Dalinar is about to walk up the stairs, Navani says something to the effect of, just go up there and be Dalinar. Be Dalinar. Make the decision that Dalinar would make. We see Zeth bring his whole path to kind of final closure in making decisions, standing up and choosing what he's going to do, not just obeying a rock or a master or whatever it is. We see Nightblood kind of comically make that same journey of Nightblood choosing to not destroy everyone else. We see Renarin and Merlane make some big choices, including the choice to free Mishram. They debate over this back and forth. Are we going to free Mishram? Are we going to not? Are we going to free Mishram? They do. They choose that big decision. And even Kaladin, when he steps up to choose to become a herald, the moment that he has the conversation he has with Syl about it is he says, what I've learned in my journey is that I don't need to sacrifice, but I am allowed to choose to. And then he chooses to. So kind of a pretty cool moment. And then it even ties into, Shallan and Adolin pretty well, I think, also, of Adolin choosing to not become a Radiant, choosing to not make oaths and to go down this unoathed path instead. I feel like that was a choice, a conscious choice that he makes, that he pursues. And then Shallan is different. She breaks all the rules. So trying to fit her into my themes that I'm tying everyone else into is a little bit different. But I think Shallan chooses to be herself. She chooses to embrace the elements of her different personas that she has and chooses to incorporate them back into her and be, I don't know if I can bring myself to say be one person, but like chooses a step in that direction. So all of our major characters, I think, making some huge decisions and choosing in day 10.
That was really good, Eliot. Thank you. Any closing thoughts, Paul, before we wrap this up and go to our wrap-up episode next week?
Well, Eliot, I think you wrapped it up very well. My hat's off to you for working to come up with themes for these days. It was a much bigger challenge than our previous part system we had.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that.
And no, threw a wrench in that, but you stuck with it. And I think choose or choice was a great way to wrap it up. I have nothing else further to add other than wow. And I feel like we've made it. We're only at, technically we're only like halfway through this series, if you will. But we've made it, and thank you to y'all for all of this. And we still get to look at the whole book in retrospect. But thank you especially if you're listening all the way through. This is one of our longest episodes, I think, to date, probably. So, yeah, awesome. More stuff to talk about still.
All right. We will reconvene next week. Thanks for joining me, Paul and Eliot.
Signing off until then.
Toodles.
Spat you out till next week.